to Uncontrollable, the podcast where we break the stigma, get loud, and get real about youth mental health. Truth is that having mental health struggles isn't weird, unnatural, or something to be ashamed of. It means you're human. Mental health affects us all, directly or indirectly. You're not alone.
We're here to remind you that some things in life are out of your control, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to embrace the chaos. Mental health doesn't have to be scary or heavy all the time. It can also be a very fun and relatable topic. This podcast is packed with stories, tools, and fresh ways to handle all the stuff that feels, well, uncontrollable.
Hi, I'm Madison Mays.
And I'm Sophia Lee.
Brought to you by Cloudcast Media.
Our goal is to eliminate the mystery and myths surrounding youth mental health and to answer your most intriguing questions.
Let's have some fun and explore the uncontrollable. Today we're here with Allison, Lawrence, and Mag from Soluna, California's free mental health care app. We're also joined by Chris Trondsen, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist and OCD advocate and currently sits on the board of directors for the International OCD Foundation. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing
I'm
well.
good.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So starting off with the team from Soluna, can you tell us a little bit about the app and what makes it different from other mental health features in California?
Do you want to do the intro for that, Allison?
Sure, I'd love to. I'd say what makes Soluna different from other resources and really what makes it stand out is that it is actually totally free. We are funded by the state of California, so no user, no parent, no school will ever be charged with anything. There's no ads, there's no insurance, no commercials they have to listen through or anything like that. And we really are rooted in an early intervention prevention space too. So we see Soluna as being there for everyone before it gets to that really bad space for some people.
Yeah, and not to mention we're also confidential, and so whenever you sign up for an account, you get assigned an anonymous name, and so you don't have to worry about people finding out who you are, because a lot of the things that come with the stigma of mental health care are the youth being afraid of being seen as someone who is needing this help. And so we're trying to break that barrier. And so we're on top of that, we provide that anonymous model. So
That's super cool. I mean, confidentiality is definitely really important to me and to a lot of students who maybe feel like they can't talk about it with anybody else. So that's super cool. That's
Scared with the fact that it might get out. Okay, and kind of going on to that, can you talk more about what does the Soluna app offer and how is it different from other mental health resources?
Yeah, definitely. So with Soluna and how it differs, we really offer, there's tools that are available 24/7 for the users. There is a moderated, safe online community forum area. And then we also have coaching if and when needed. So users really have a plethora of options that they can pick and choose from. There's also just content on there too. So you were talking about how mental health can be fun. There's some fun quizzes on there. There's some fun myths and facts. There's some articles they can read. There's some audio clips they can listen to. There's videos they can watch too. So really wherever they fall on this huge mental health spectrum, there's going to be something there for them to help them really access the tools that they need when they need it.
right, and piggybacking off of that, just going back to the subclinical and early intervention and prevention model that we have, these are level of support. These are different levels of support that we provide you guys. Going back to the tools section, there are many different tools that you can utilize. Journaling, for example, is one of the most important thing that we have, because oftentimes when we're dealing with something, especially for the youth, they feel like everything is 10 times worse. And sometimes all they got to do is just let it out, right? And so writing it down may be that way of doing that. We also have the mood log, for example. So if you are dealing with something maybe coming up, right? You want to track how your mood has been getting into that safe space and that, in that little time and moment, you kind of can go back into that, so that in the future, when you're dealing with something similar, you can kind of look back and see what you did differently, what you can do differently, what you did then, and how to get better over time. Other things in there too, we have meditation in there, breathing exercises. And one of my favorite one really is, and I've talked about this many times in the past, is the let it out tool. This is similar to you kind of throwing a pillow on your face and yelling and screaming just because you're stressed, right? But sometimes we just need to do that. In this way, you just, hold your thumb on your mobile device, you see a bubble forming, you talk to your phone or you yell to your phone, whatever it may be, and then when you're done, you let it go and you see that bubble float away. And it's kind of like a visually appealing process, therapeutic, and it's like one of those tools that sometimes that's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm. I'd say with that, one of my favorite options that Soluna has, I spoke to the moderated community forums. So as Mag said, because everyone gets a random username, people can really engage authentically on here. The forums have questions about people just wanting to really feel validated in whatever it is they're experiencing. Has anyone else gone through this? Does anyone have advice? How am I going to get through this? Let me know that, you come out on the other end of it too. It's really a safe online community and a space where they can feel like themselves and feel like they're not going through whatever it is alone. And because we have the moderation too, every single post and reply is read by real people, by our coaches on our side, to make sure that it's safe, that it's kind, that it's appropriate. So there's no chance of any type of cyberbullying happening too. So we really want to make sure that people feel safe and supported and heard on Soluna.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I mean, I thought that I knew about Soluna and that they had a lot to offer, but
Right, but
there's
it's
so many things. Oh my goodness.
right. You guys do offer, and if I'm correct, so you guys are kind of like the before steps, right? So like you're trying to like you track along the process, like you're through the journey more so before they kind of reach that step. So is it more so like a preventative measure?
That is
Exactly.
correct. Yeah. Yeah, and we're there to like provide you guys the life essential tools that you guys need in order for you to get ahead of what's happening or what can happen in the future. We're not here to diagnose you guys. We're not here to prescribe medication or anything like that. We're not therapy, right? But we're essentially there to get ahead of all that before that happens. Right, going back to the forums and the polls and all that community that we have and we're trying to build in this safe environment, one of the biggest thing as a youth, and speaking for myself and my own personal experience, when we're dealing with something, we often feel like we're the only one handling or experiencing this one ordeal that no one else has ever experienced in the world, right? And oftentimes when we go in these forums, they can take a look at what else is going on in the world with other people. And so it gives them a different perspective of what's happening. And sometimes maybe that's all they need to hear, because then at that moment, they might feel or start thinking that, oh, maybe what I'm going through is not so bad after all. It's not to diminish what they're feeling at the moment, but sometimes we need a different perspective of what we're seeing. And when they see other people and other kids and other youth dealing with something far worse than what they're dealing with, it gives them a different perspective, and then maybe they can start feeling a little bit better and they're not shouldering all that problem and their on their shoulders, and it's something that maybe they just need to hear from other people, and then they can start the process of either healing themselves or talking with other people who are dealing with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And kind of building off of that, so how would I be able to tell if Soluna is the right resource for me or if I need to get professional help and move on?
That's a great question. I would say Soluna would be really good service, platform, app, whatever we want to call it, for anyone to get started. I think the words mental health can be really intimidating sometimes. We've had kids come up to us and say, oh, I don't need mental health, or oh, I don't need therapy. That's okay. We're not therapy. And guess what? We all have mental health is the thing. It's the same thing as our physical health. It's there whether we want to acknowledge it or not. So I'd say just try getting started on it. See what works for you. We have users that really gravitate toward the journaling, like Mag said. We have users that come back over and over for coaching again, it's all options. But we are not the end all be all, and we always fully recognize that too. There's people in schools, nonprofits, there's teachers, there's parents and caregivers that care so much about these kids in real life. And sometimes, thinking about we're on summer break right now for a lot of schools, they may not have that trusted adult. Soluna could help complement whatever it is that they may or may not be getting inside or outside of school. We also offer care coordination too. So if a user says, I think I do want therapy over coaching, I want to talk to a different level of professional about what I'm going through, we can work with local services and figure out a no or low cost solution for them. We can figure out the transportation for them, really closing the loop on trying to figure out the healthcare system as a young adult, trying to figure out transportation, the legal system, finances. I myself don't like calling my own doctor, as a 30-something-year-old and trying to schedule that appointment. So if I had a care coordinator to walk me through that process, I could just get the help I needed easier, quicker, more confidently too. So they are anonymous on this app, but they're really never alone.
I like that. That's that phrase.
So now we're moving more into the therapy part of the episode. Once again, this is a different episode for us because we're starting with a preventative resource, and then we're going to describe what it's like when you do take the step and decide that you need help for yourself. And of course, still feel free to chime in sometimes, Soluna. We value your opinions. So yeah, do you have the first question for therapy, Madison?
Oh, yeah. Well, we could start off, Chris. Can you tell us more about your role, like what you do, or like your career-wise? Like, right into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a licensed mental health professional. So I know Salūna was talking really great about preventative steps. And if somebody is hitting that point where they're really struggling, so if you look at any condition, the DSM stands for Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, mental disorders rather. And when somebody is having that D, that last letter, usually in the mental health condition, so that might be like an eating disorder or obsessive compulsive disorder, it typically means that their everyday life is being impacted. So they're struggling to get to class or be present at school. Maybe they're isolating themselves or not being around friends. And so as a licensed mental health professional, what we do is we really work with clients using different therapeutic tools to really help them regain a sense of well-being, reducing some of the symptoms that they're experiencing. So as a licensed clinician, I work with clients in Orange County, California, but it is also important for me to give back. I know there's a lot of people that can't always afford resources. So I sit on two different boards. One is a nonprofit known as OCD Southern California, and then I'm on the board of the International OCD Foundation as well. And one of the things that I really try to do is create free and extremely low cost services, events for people that need just some support with their mental health. So kind of doing both the nonprofit and realm and advocacy and speaking about my own mental health journey, as well as being a licensed clinician.
Wow, that's super cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the free resources that you provide?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do is I run a free family and loved one support group every second Saturday of the month. So that's for family members who have a loved one that's dealing with obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphic disorder and body image disorders, anxiety, social anxiety, depression. We had it a couple weeks ago, and we had 195 families from around the world that joined us. So that's an absolutely free service. Additionally, we do mental health walks in and around Southern California, so people can come, get some free food, walk, raise stigma awareness for mental health, as well as interact with people in their community. We throw free in-person support groups. We do trainings for clinicians. We do mini conferences, and we're hosting a huge conference in November 15th and 16th, where the cost is only $20 for a 2-day conference. But people can absolutely email us if finances is a cost or if, is a factor, and we can waive that and give them a scholarship-free entrance. So one of the things that I like doing in advocacy and nonprofit is be able to ensure that therapists can get training, as well as people with mental health conditions and their family can go to support groups or conferences or events to meet other people and find resources.
That's so
Okay,
cool. Oh
that
my
sounds
gosh.
awesome. And speaking of like, cause we have your measure of the therapy and like kind of helping people. So this question goes for everybody. Like, what's your advice for people to know when they need help? Like, how do we see that? Like,
Mm.
oh, to start using Soluna, oh, to start looking out for these type of resources to help them. Like, how do people usually know?
Yeah, I could jump in the therapy part and then let Saluna take on the other half. Usually, when somebody is at a point where they're noticing that their life is starting to look drastically different, the things that they used to enjoy and love to engage in, suddenly they're not watching their favorite shows or listening to their favorite songs. They're also starting to find themselves not answer their phone or text friends back. They're running late to different things. Most of the day, they're having a pretty negative internal dialogue. They're finding themselves sad or really struggling to engage in things like work and school and travel. And so the idea is to reach out to a licensed professional if you're at that point and need actual therapy. And the idea is that that therapist is going to work with you and specialize in what you may be experiencing, whether it's an eating disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, et cetera, and really get tools so that you can manage those symptoms and get back to a lifestyle that is values based and goals based and getting you back to a place where you're feeling mentally sound and your life is looking a lot like how you want it to be. And so when people are at that point where they're really struggling, therapy is a good place to start if they're at that point that they need it.
I mean, I'll add in here, in the things that we do here in Soluna. Whenever we're doing presentations in front of high school students or even ninth and eighth graders, we're just to the community overall. One of the things that we always say is we have this thing that we present called what we call is our mental health self-check spectrum. Right, it's similar to what you would see in an ER, where how bad is your pain, 1 to 10, right? So your pain scale. In our own, we have like five different things. Right? We have green, which is like excelling, then you have thriving, and then you have in the middle, which is like surviving. And then towards that, at the left side of that is like struggling, and then now you're in crisis, right? And so what I like to say, or what we like to say to the youth, is that look, most of the time, we're surviving. We're dealing with a lot of things. We're nervous about things. We're irritable. We're worried and all that stuff, right? And then sometimes our life, is excelling. Everything's going our way, but one phone call away from us tilting towards struggling, and then another thing adds up to that, and then now we're in crisis. The important thing about this is knowing when to self check yourself once in a while, or doing this once in a while just to see where you're at. Because when it gets bad, when it's at the struggling phase and you feel like you're tilting over in crisis, that's when you got to start talking about mental health care. At the very least, write it down. But really, that's how we've been teaching it. We're not the licensed professional, but we always say, like, in our own personal experiences, really, that's when I know, especially for myself, being a war veteran, in the Marine Corps, many times I'm struggling, right? And so dealing with all that, knowing, it took me many years to learn this, but it's practice and it's admitting that I need help. It's taking the first step of actually seeking that help and actually start talking about it that made me, feel better about myself. And later on, I'm thriving, and most of the time, I'm thriving. And sometimes when I feel like I'm struggling, I know what to do next. But it's just practice and yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say too. We have so many tools and resources that are available for them when they are thriving and excelling. I look at my own life when I'm having those good days and those good vibes, and like, what am I doing right here to be feeling this way? And I try to take note of that. But that is like a skill, and that's an exercise that has taken years to hone in on and recognize in myself too. So looking at your life and how do you feel about it, like Chris was saying too, what am I enjoying? What am I not enjoying? But before it gets to that crisis level, if you're just surviving or you're just kind of chugging along or you're having the best times of your life, breath work is always going to be beneficial. Journaling, writing your feelings down is always going to be beneficial. So there are always things that we can do to keep maintaining our mental health. I just always use that analogy again of like physical health and mental health. It is so connected and both are so important. We do tend to, I think, prioritize the physical health, of course. We can tell when we've gained weight. We can tell when, we're having a bad hair day or anything like that. But mental health is so much more layered and complex too. So being able to take a step back and look at where am I on the spectrum today and what can I do to either stay there or to move myself towards that excelling. It takes practice, but that's what we're here for too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting that you mention taking into account the good days, because a lot of times people say mental health and we think about, oh no, it's a bad day. How can I improve
Hey,
it?
it's horrible.
But yeah, it's also because mental health care is really learning about how to feel better in yourself in your own life. Wait, I'm so sorry. What time is it, Madison? Do you know what time it is?
Oh, I don't know. What time is it, Sophia?
It's game time.
So
It gets worse every time we say it.
It does get worse. But yeah, we like to do, in the middle of our podcast, we like to do little mini games, kind of just to lighten the mood, get to know each other breaker, like tiny icebreakers.
So, would you like to play Hot Takes with us?
Let's do it. I'm excited. I'm pumped.
So basically, we're going to say a statement that's a little bit controversial, and then we're going to get your guys' takes on it.
Ooh.
I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble for this.
I don't know. Hopefully they aren't too bad. But the first one is sushi is overhyped.
Oh, absolutely not. I love sushi. I had sushi yesterday. It's the best thing ever. Who said it's overhyped?
I said it.
I agree.
No!
I don't know. I feel like I can't eat that much raw fish. I don't know.
You
Just
can
haven't gone to a good Japanese restaurant, so you gotta go to a good one.
You can hit me with some recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
You come to the Bay Area.
Let's see. Let's go. Off-brand or rip-off products are better than designer.
I would say, for the most part, everything is made in China. So it's really how it's branded. You know what I mean? So, and sometimes you can find off-brand product that's a lot better quality than the branded ones, at least in my experience. But it's all preference and subjective.
Yeah, what I was just going to add is I love a good vintage moment, a good thrifting moment. I love that people are more sustainability conscious now. So I think you can go and find really good things that you thrive and like that aren't super expensive. The only one I'm going to fight back on is food. Because I'm telling you, like growing up from a low income household, we only ate off brand food. And when I first had Cheerios instead of like Ring O cereals, I was like, oh my God, real name brand food is so much better. But when it comes to like outfits and clothes and stuff, I think you can find great stuff at affordable cost that is not harming our environment. So I'm going to have to go with y'all. I agree with that on clothes. But food. Yes.
funny.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm a big thrifter too, so I second what Chris was saying.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah.
But here's something. I was just going to add, I don't like warm desserts. I like all my desserts cold. So I mess with cold brownies. I don't want them right out the oven. I want them like sitting for a while. They're cool to the touch. But brownies definitely triumph over cake and cupcakes for sure.
So funny. I love any dessert, so it is really hard for me to pick. I'm a big sweet tooth person, cheesecake, cookies, ice cream, cup, like all of it. So cold brownie, warm brownie, I'm here for it. Just give me the sweets.
that one. Okay, just do it.
This is Sophia's. Being vegan is cool.
I know, but wait. I'm never coming back from this.
You guys believe that? Being vegan is cool?
I think it's whatever works for you. It's your lifestyle, right? I mean,
It's your lifestyle. I don't think there's nothing wrong.
there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I don't think so. I mean, I think the closest I've been to being a vegan was when I was running ultra marathons, and I was just really conscious of my calorie intake and all that stuff. So, there's nothing wrong with that. You feel healthy, you're good.
It's healthier. That's what I was gonna say. It's healthier, so if you can swing it, go for it. But I can't.
Honestly, with all the stuff going around in food these days,
Yeah, it's crazy.
My youngest sister is vegan, and she eats really good food, and we've gone to a lot of different vegan restaurants in Southern California, and it's super good, and a lot of it tastes the same way. I just personally could not give up cheese. I just can't. I need my cheese. But being vegan is a commitment, so props to anybody that can hold that standard.
Yeah.
Retired vegan. I've never heard of that. I love that. I want to use that from now.
Honestly, I didn't miss bacon. So if you guys are considering going vegan, vegetarian, it wasn't that bad. I liked some of my favorite foods just happen to be vegan now.
Totally. I think it's important to you may not label yourself as a vegan, but I bet some meals that you still eat are vegan meals. Like, I'm not a vegan, but I do some meatless meal prep every week, So it's like I don't have to be fully. Don't put me in a box, Don't label me.
agree. You want to ask another one?
Yeah, let's think. Should we do this one or this one?
That one.
That one? Okay. This one might actually be controversial. America is better than Canada.
No, Jesus.
I don't know if I'm emotionally equipped to answer that right now.
I need to hold my mouth shut. So I'm not going to get into this.
I've never been to Canada, so I think that's the hard thing.
True.
I went to Norway. I'm half Norwegian, and I went to Norway and Iceland last year. And there's definitely things that they do that's incredible. There's so much more public transportation, walk everywhere, bike everywhere. You don't do that in Southern California. So I felt so much healthier. So there's certain things that I liked better about their culture. They were so friendly to each other. But Canada, I can't speak on because I've never been. But my Canadian friends are always the nicest people in the world. So I will say that.
Yeah.
Go see.
I was just sometimes I keep track of. Okay, that sounded really weird as an opening sentence, but of celebrities that Canada has versus America, and so I don't know why. It's just a thing that I do. And when I found out Keanu Reeves was Canadian, I swear I was sad for 2 entire weeks. I was so sad. I thought he was American, and we lost a good one.
I did too. I just found out from you that he was not American, and I love him.
But anyways, this was a good.
My last question. How many holes are in the straw? 1 or 2?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Awesome.
I have a straw right in front of me, and technically it looks like there's 2, but I don't know. Yeah.
I think there's 1.
You think there's 1?
Because if you're digging a hole, right, and it's just 1 entry point and exit point, right?
Feels like it's punch. It feels like it's 2 holes though. Oh no, that's just me. That random question though, but
I feel like if it's 2 holes, it's 2 entry points and 2 exit points. 2 different ones. That's what I would think. But if it's the same hole,
yeah. I'm going to think on that for a while now.
That's a good question, though. Never thought of that.
Back on topic.
That's the end of our game. Thank you guys for playing.
Yes, thank you for playing. Okay, so we were just talking about therapy, how to know if I need help, sort of reasons for getting help, and Chris, we were wondering, what are the different types of therapy? Is all therapy the same? And what is it actually like?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say therapy is actually like one of the unique cornerstones, and what I would champion. I know Soluna talked about things being private, and I would say that that's the cornerstone of therapy. Is that when you work with a therapist, everything that you talk about is 100% confidential. It's protected by HIPAA, which is a government law that passed so that you have privacy rights. The only time, obviously, therapists need to break those rights is if we're afraid that you or somebody in your life is being in danger, obviously. But outside of that, everything that you talk to a therapist is confidential. And so what therapy traditionally is like is you go to an office, and it's usually a comfortable setting. This is my office right now. There's my couch right there. You see the tissues. That's kind of a staple in a therapy office. My degrees and all the books I read. But you go and see a licensed therapist who's really been trained in how to support you with what you're going through. And the idea is you show up for about an hour if you're doing a traditional like therapy session, and it gives you an opportunity to open up and to be listened to, validated and heard and supported by someone who's a little bit of an objective person. So, your friends and your family are always going to have their own opinions because they're going to take your side or they know you well. And it's really just somebody who's looking out for you and helping you overcome the challenges that you're facing. But there's definitely different types of therapy. So I'm specifically trained in cognitive behavioral therapy and similar kind of like under the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy umbrella, because I specify and specifically work with obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, and body image disorders, depression, social anxiety, etc. So that's the treatment for that. But there's other therapists that work with couples. So that might be a couple that is married but is experiencing some challenges. Mag talked a little bit about his experience, fighting in for our country. There's people that specifically work with post-traumatic stress syndrome stress disorder, PTSD, to really support people with the flashbacks and the other strong emotions they have after coming through war or other life-threatening experiences. So the really good thing is most treatment disorders have what we know is frontline treatment. So if you do experience something, what you'd want to see is like, what is the most studied and researched therapy for that specific challenge? And then finding a therapist that specializes in it. So let's say you are experiencing OCD, your therapy may be very different versus somebody in your family that's maybe struggling a little bit. Let's say you have a sibling who's struggling a little bit with dyslexia and struggling to read and stuff in class. They're going to see someone different. So you just want to make sure you're in the right type of therapy. But traditionally, it's the same thing where you're going to work one-on-one with a therapist who's really going to guide you over some challenges and give you tools.
To kind of backtrack, you talked about cognitive behavioral therapy. Can you talk more about what that is and how helpful it is?
Yeah, so cognitive behavioral therapy is the most studied treatment modality on the planet. So it has the most research to back it. It's found to be extremely helpful. And the idea is that our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are all interconnected. And so a lot of us have a lot of thoughts throughout the day, and sometimes they're really great, but sometimes they're really unhelpful. So you're about to speak in front of the class and your thoughts are, oh, I'm going to mess up and people are going to laugh at me and stare. Or maybe you're going to a birthday party and it's a pool party and you are looking in the mirror at yourself in a bathing suit and starting to think like, ooh, I look too wide for this bathing suit. So we know that our thoughts really kind of bring down our feelings if they're sort of those negative, unhelpful thoughts. And then traditionally we will do a behavior like, let's say you're having those thoughts at a pool party, you might cover up and say you're sick and go home. And so the idea behind CBT is to really look at those thoughts and challenge some of the distortions that we have and ask ourselves, how would I talk to a friend? What advice would I give one of my friends if she came in and said, hey, I have to leave this pool party. I feel really attractive in this bathing suit. So it's starting to change the dialogue in your head of one that's more supportive and one that you'd give your friends. And then recognizing that sometimes our emotions are intense, but we don't always have to give into our emotions. So you may be frustrated with your sibling. It doesn't mean you have to yell and scream. You can be frustrated, but maybe not act on it. And then lastly, just changing our behaviors that are much more in line with our values. So, you can still maybe feel nervous about hosting a podcast like this, but still choose to show up and do a great job anyways, because it's really important to you. So it's really changing the way we interact with our thoughts and feelings and then back it up with behavior is how I like to think about cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
I've been doing cognitive behavioral therapy. By the way, if we say CBT, we're still talking about cognitive behavioral therapy. Don't want to get anybody confused. But I have a phobia, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a cousin of OCD almost. They're kind of similar,
Yeah.
kind of different. And I've never heard cognitive behavioral therapy described so succinctly, but also so
Thank you.
precisely. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm at home. Like, this is what I've been, like, working on for the past, like, 3-ish years. But yeah, no, it's really helped me. I think when I was first trying to discover what therapy was right for me, because I saw different therapists before I started seeing my cognitive behavioral therapist, and it was a lot of, like, oh, I hear you. Okay. And there was nothing else, which, it's great to be seen and heard and validated. And that's what a lot of people think that therapy is, just sitting on a couch, talking about your life, and then some therapist saying, okay, yeah, this probably means this about your childhood. And sometimes that's what people need with therapy. But I just want to let people know that there are other ways. CBT is very process oriented. If you want to know certain strategies or certain ways to start changing your behaviors or your thoughts, ways to get out of a spiral, or to realize that it's okay to spiral because anxiety can't really hurt you, there are other therapies for you. And I've also tried therapies besides CBT, which I think we talk about in a later episode.
Right. We'll be coming back to it.
But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for opening about your personal experience. Absolutely. A phobia is very close relative to OCD. And let's say somebody has a metaphobia, and that's the fear of throwing up. As helpful as that's the one you have. Okay, I had it too. So we're like this. I think what happens probably with your experience is going to a psychodynamic therapist. That's when we think of like Freud and talk therapy. That could be extremely helpful. It's just unfortunately not the right kind of treatment for a phobia. One of the things that I was really afraid of is eating. I would read the packaging and look at the expiration date to make sure it wasn't like a day over, because I was afraid it'd make me sick and then throw up. Talking about that wasn't helpful, but really starting to challenge some of those fears, getting back to eating food, because unfortunately I lost a lot of weight because I was afraid of eating, challenging that and eating in session with a therapist and gaining confidence back through CBT and, exposure therapy was much more helpful than just talking about it. So thank you for bringing awareness to what you're going through. I really appreciate what you're sharing with the community. We are. And we're the same age.
Because a lot of kids think like, oh, I would never go to therapy. If I had therapy, I would just lie to them. Therapy isn't for me.
All right. So, like, what do you guys think? Is that the best option?
I think I'll plug in here, like, this is why Salūna exists, right? It's not essentially therapy, but it's tools. There are tools that we provide you guys that can help prevent you needing therapy in the future. And that's the whole idea behind it, at least to start talking about mental health care, right? And so that's why we exist, or other resources like Salūna exist. It's so we can get ahead of all that.
I think it can be so hard to know if you need therapy, or so hard to make that next step, to make the call, to figure out your insurance, figure out where to go, all those things. I love therapy. Like I have always heard it as kind of like dating. You got to find your right one. Like if you have an experience with a therapist and you guys just don't vibe, you're like, I don't like therapy. Don't rule it out yet. Give it another shot if you can. Try someone else. Make that connection. But yeah, as Mag was saying too, like that's an option for some people. It's not an option for everyone though, right? And so there are tools, resources, self-coping tools on Soluna too that people can access if that therapy level is too daunting for them or unattainable to them right now.
I think part of the thing is also just educating the masses, right? Because the word therapy is a scary thing. Growing up, I'm 40 years old now, and I didn't grow up in a world where therapy was a word. I didn't know about that. right? It was looked down upon. Every time I would give a hint of an idea that I needed some sort of talk with my friends, they would always give me the side eye and like, "What's wrong with you? You're weird," right? And so now I'm left to figure out every feeling that I'm having in that moment on my own. And my mom was, thankfully I had a good relationship with her, but also she was too busy raising us, and so there would be times where it's just me, right? And so how do we navigate that? And I think a lot of kids, they feel that way. A lot of youth, they feel like, well, I can't talk to my parents, I can't talk to my friends, I can't even talk to anybody else, right? I feel like I'm alone in this. And that's why it's important that we educate the masses that there are resources out there like Soluna, like Brightline, like, et cetera, and et cetera, that are free for you to take advantage of to start at least diving into the idea of at least taking care of your mental health care and talking about it, right? And again, at the very least, writing it down. But they don't know that until they go through that step in the process.
I'm probably biased as a licensed therapist. I always think therapy is huge and important. I will say one thing that I'm excited about is I'm seeing a lot more of my preteen and my teen and young adult clients being more open with their friends and family about seeking therapy and explaining to people that therapy isn't because you're broken or something's wrong with you. It's just that you have a challenge that is really negatively impacting your life. And I always remind clients that your wellness is absolutely your business. If you don't want to open up or share, you are not required. But with apps like Soluna, there needs to be more preventative. I think we're much more of a reaction society. Like when someone's struggling, then we get help, and we need a lot more prevention. And I think if there was more open dialogue in high schools and middle schools about mental health, my hope would be that people start to get help before it gets to a point that they might need care. Lastly, I'll just plug some of the things that both Allison and Mag talked about. I mean, breath work and deep breathing is really helpful. Connection with friends and talking to people, movement in nature. Like there's things that you could do to take care of your wellness. Obviously, cell phones and technology isn't the enemy, but making sure that you're also doing things balanced with hobbies and connecting with others. So having an overall wellness lifestyle and preemptive with a therapist, I mean, that's just well-rounded, and that's going to take best care of you.
Okay, I like that. I see that.
Yeah, those were really good answers.
Especially paying for it. So, what is like your guys' take on that, your argument?
Totally understandable. I hear that, right? I think the difference is when I'm working with a client, I'm coming from an unbiased lens and from an affirmation lens, right? Like sometimes when we talk to friends or family, we can feel dismissed. We can go to a friend of ours and talk about something we're struggling with, and they're like, "Oh, it'll be fine. Get over it. Everything will work out." But you may know that, but you're still struggling, right? And so I think that a therapist is going to be, affirmative and also objective. They're not going to have like an ulterior motive or something. They're going to really give you feedback from a clear lens. Additionally, therapies that I do, like CBT, I mean, that's been around before any of us have been born in the 1950s, right? So it's really highly studied and scientifically backed advice. So it's a specific skill that therapists train. So as good as friends and family is, like to discuss and talk and get advice from. And in fact, as a therapist, I want people to talk to their friends or family so they're not isolated. We were talking about emetophobia, for instance. A lot of people are struggling with things that have a very specific treatment. I also do a treatment called CBTI. It's cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And so a lot of my clients are really struggling to fall asleep and have poor sleep habits. Talking to your friends and family may be good still to get, kind of like vent about your frustrations with sleeping. But there are some specific tools that I can give a client that can improve their sleep. So I think with therapy, there's the treatment is really trying to target some specific challenges, but balanced with talking to friends and family is a great way to utilize all of the things that you have available to yourself.
No, I completely agree too. I think therapy and being able to talk to an outside professional, like outside of your circle, but still part of your team and everything is so valuable. And being able to talk to your family and friends, if that's an option for you, that's amazing. Sometimes that's just not an option for everyone, though. Or I think someone on here had said it too about like, well, if I went to therapy, like maybe I would just lie or something like that too. Because the users are anonymous on Soluna, there's no reason to lie. It's not tied to me, so I can really engage as my true self without worrying that Mag's going to be the one that like knows that I said this about myself or that I'm struggling with this. No one's going to figure it out that it was me, so I can just kind of word vomit everything that I'm going through. I may not want to put that on my friends too. Like I love my friends and my family and they're going through their own stuff too. So I may want to seek outside help for that.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap that whole thing up is that, that's our job, right? Myself, I'm a community engagement lead. My job is to be out there talking to kids, talking to the youth about mental health care. I'm giving them a little bit of my experience, personal experience with being in the military, having seen war, having done this and that, and then just presenting to them that, look, mental health care does not, or mental health illnesses does not discriminate. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter the color of your skin, how rich you are, how famous you are, it attacks you at any given moment, whenever it wants. And that's the idea, is that, look, you got to get ahead of it. And so what we got to do is do better in talking about it and opening it up for discussion and making sure that everyone is comfortable about talking about it. But it's a lot easier said than done. And that's why our efforts are to get into a lot of presentations, to get out there and educate the masses. Because look, if you are already in that moment where you're kind of like past surviving, right, and you need therapy, like you need to admit that you need therapy, or you need someone to guide you through that process to get you to talk to someone like Chris, for example, right? And so that's what we're all here. We're all in a team where we're trying to get ahead of it. And if you need further help, then we provide you other resources out there that can help you get ahead of before it gets even worse. So before it's too late, really.
Kind of going off of that as we wrap up our episode, even seeking therapy early. I know a lot of people wait until they hit a breaking point to seek therapy, but for some disorders, some mental illnesses like mine, the longer you wait, the actually more you start to spiral and it gets stronger and stronger. So you could tell yourself for maybe half your life, oh, it's not that big a deal, it's not that big of a problem, I can handle it. But then the longer you wait, and the harder it is for you to talk about your feelings. Because I think if I had used Soluna as a kid, I would have realized sooner that I actually did need help, and that, oh my gosh, it's okay to talk about therapy and mental health, and this is really a good thing for me, not something that's bad. So thank you again for educating everybody through Soluna, for providing a resource where students can talk freely about mental health and talk about maybe what are the next steps for them. That's super cool. And if you're struggling out there, if you think maybe you need help, you're not quite sure, Salūna is a great resource for you. And there are a ton of cool therapists out there that, even if you don't get it the first try, you'll find one that you really like.
Right.
Do you have any questions?
No, this has been great, like, really learning, and, like, I'm glad we got to talk with, like, even, like, an OCD specialist, because that is something I've struggled with, too. We'll probably get more into that, further episodes, but it's kind of good looking into cognitive behavioral therapy, because that's something similar to what I used to do, because I used to have, like, a bad obsessive disorder, and kind of, like, talking about, like really defining things, right? Because I think people are so quick to put, like, a label on something, or label what I have, like, on what they have, and it's, like, not the same. Like, it's, like, I remember trying to explain what I was struggling with, right? Because everyone wants to, like, label or self-diagnose, but it's, like, once you really find people that are similar, can define and kind of help you see what you're struggling with, that does help a lot. So just even the Soluna app seems helpful as just something just to have, to help, that know it's always there. So I'm, like, really appreciate, like, learning more, because it was kind of a new perspective for me. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, everybody.
Thank you so much. But yeah.
Well, thanks for having us.
Of course.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you for coming on. And once again, I'm Madison Mays.
And I'm Sophia Lee.
Brought to you by Cloudcast Media.
Today we talked with Salūna and with Chris Trondsen, a licensed LMFT, about therapy, preventative resources, how to tell when I need help. So many things, really. Right. Just to overall better the experience and just make yourself a better person, healthier person. Mm-hmm. And we hope you have some fun today. And guys, remember, don't be afraid to explore the uncontrollable.